Guys of Reddit who have rejected someone, what's the worst way someone has taken it? Story 1. My ex-wife started acting real shady, sneaking out of the house to make phone calls, hiding incoming calls, and not telling who was calling in the middle of date night, even though I asked nicely. She was also a mean drunk and had started drinking to excess every night. Then the physical violence started, throwing shit at my head, including a large rock, kicking and punching when she got angry. This is where I drew the line. One night, she went off the rails again in front of her small children, and I just knew that I could no longer live like that. I had just returned home from a week-long business trip and hadn't unpacked my bags yet, so I grabbed those, took one last look at my nice home and my family, and left. As I walked out, I knew full well that all of the things I didn't grab were probably gone for good, but I needed to be as well, or I would either end up in jail or dead. She blew my phone up for the next couple of weeks, at least 60 text messages a day on the work cell, all hate-filled and incredibly vile. I tried to call her a couple of times when off of work to talk about how we could best separate our finances and things, and try to move on amicably, but she would just scream and accuse me of cheating because that was the only logical reason why I had left. Cheaters all do this. BT. The last time we talked before the divorce, she threatened to file a false police report for harming her 4-year-old son. She didn't specify whether the allegation would be physical or sexual in nature. That didn't matter to me. Neither happened, and either one would end my career and my freedom. I cut off all contact. I tried to get her served with divorce papers only to learn from the process server she had abandoned the home. I went to survey the damage to find almost all of my clothes had been bleached. Along with our new living room set, the new dining room table and chairs had been gouged. Weeks' worth of trash and raw food had been left out. The refrigerator had been turned off, leaving hundreds of dollars of food to rot. The whole place smelled like death. She had also taken all of the electronics, probably to hawk, my passport with stamps in it from around the world, and the painting I had inherited from my beloved grandfather who had passed away. She knew this would hurt me the most. All said and done, $7,000 in property damage and another $1,500 in stolen property. I filed a police report for insurance reasons and also for a restraining order, because my ex had obviously gone batshit and was capable of anything. The police, of course, didn't give two shits, not surprisingly, because vagina. Story 2. I've posted this before, but figure this is a good one for people here. So originally my ex-GF broke up with me. She was 25 at the time. I said, okay, cool, I'll move out at the end of finals, about 2 weeks. She left for a few days to hang out with friends. I decided to move all my stuff out while she was gone, except some clothes, my bed, and laptop. She comes back, notices everything of mine is gone, and starts flipping out, causing I'm moving out. Thought she wanted me out. She probably wanted me to beg to stay together, LOL. She kicks the trash can, screams a bit, cries, starts pouting and stomping around the room, then lays on the floor, pounding her hands and feet into the ground like a child. It's exactly how it sounds. I, of course, start laughing because I don't know WTF is going on, and this is ridiculous. I finally had to step in when she started trying to stab her leg with pencils. Eventually, I find a place and move out. She would call me and talk a bit, then start yelling or getting upset. I would warn her that if she can't talk like an adult, I will hang up on her. She hated that, lol. Of course, she didn't stop, so click. She calls back, and I'd answer like nothing happened, and she'd start yelling, "Don't hang up on me." Then I hung up on her again, lol. This would go on for a bit before I got bored and stopped answering. Eventually, this happened again where she would call and I would end up hanging up on her. She called again and told me she was coming over. Now, I never told her where my new place was, but she knew the general area. I quickly park my car in the garage and go back to playing video games. She calls me and tells me she is outside and I should come out. Luckily, she was down the road at some other house. I tell her she's crazy and needs to seek professional help. So, what does she do, you ask? She decides to push her car horn for a good 15 minutes at 10 p.m. in a residential neighborhood, all the while telling me in a frustrated, childlike voice that I need to come outside. Of course, I'm not going to do that and tell her to go home. At some point, she realizes this is going nowhere, goes home, then calls me and tells me she just took a ton of pills and to come over or she'll die. I tell her I'm going to call the cops, and realizing that she would lose her job, works with kids, agrees to puking the pills out. To see a grown-ass adult literally throw a temper tantrum with flailing limbs was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Story 3. I've got one. In middle and elementary school, this weird girl took a liking to me, followed me around at recess, and wanted me to marry her when I grew up. If I wanted a recess to myself, I'd have to outrun her and lose her. Kept me in good shape. Fast forward to high school, I landed in the same film arts class as her. I'd often be out filming interviews and short films around the school, but when I was in the editing room, there she'd be, ogling me from across the room, inching her chair closer and closer, and complimenting me on virtually everything. My hair, clothes, jewelry, etc. I was a socially awkward teenager, and I didn't explicitly tell her no as soon as I should have. She reached out to me on Facebook a few times asking if I'd consider dating her, and that's when I said I have no doubt you'll find the one, but it is not me. I'm pretty sure she started stalking me after that. It all started when I was biking to school one day and saw her leaning up against a telephone pole at the end of my street, staring at me as if she was expecting me. She lives quite far away from me. I used to live on her street in elementary school, so she must have followed me home, then gotten up at the crack of dawn and figured out when I'd be leaving for school. This happened a few times. Fast forward to present day. She seems to have figured out what routes I take home from work. Sometimes I'll be biking to work or home from work, and she'll be standing at an intersection, again, staring at me as if she's expecting I'm going to come this way. She messaged me again a few weeks ago asking if I'd date her, and I gave her a very clear rejection. Hopefully this time it sticks. I'm just really glad she doesn't know where I live. Story 4. When I was in high school, a girl I had started hanging out with was texting and asked me out over text. I was trying to think of the best way to let her down, and she was getting impatient, so I basically told her that I liked being friends, and I don't want to be anything more than that, and that I don't want to date while I'm in high school, because between school, work, and my MMA classes, I didn't have a lot of time for dating. Plus, I lived out of town and didn't have a car. She sent me a text that just said no and wouldn't respond. After that, she stalked me for a while and tried to make me jealous, even going as far as getting herself pregnant. Another girl I had turned down didn't react quite as badly. I was doing headshots for her in our school's photography studio to add to her modeling portfolio. And sometimes during photo shoots, things can become a little intimate when you have to physically pose them, essentially move them like a mannequin to get the exact pose you want. And after a month of us talking and doing photo shoots, she asked me out, but I declined and she just walked away out of the studio, not saying anything. Started dating a guy immediately after that and asked how it made me feel. But when I said I was happy for her, she flipped out and after that would purposefully get super flirty with me anytime she saw me talking to a girl trying to ruin any potential romance and getting really aggressive with any girl she thought I had a thing with. There have been a few since, but the stories aren't interesting enough to justify adding to a long post. But basically, one tried telling people I her, another became a cam girl and has finally stopped cyber stalking me after 4 years, and the last one came after me with a knife. Story 5. This was a bit of a double-edged sword, but 2 girls in college, different times. The first one had a crush on me and her ex, and I helped her through everything. Was not opposed to sex, but never pushed for it. She made it her goal to make me feel as jealous as possible around other guys. Maybe a year later, she finally asked me over to spend the night with her. I was a little baked, and after the weird sex, she passed out and started snoring. I felt weird as fuck lying in bed stoned and awake, so I decided to leave. The next day, she texts me super angrily, as expected, and ignores me for a few weeks. Maybe a month later, she posts a picture of an ultrasound and tags me in it. Messaged me back a few hours later saying it was a joke, and her mom called her crying. That's why she told me. Second girl had BPD but was calm and interesting enough to pursue. She asked me to go to clubs and bars with her and then made out with other guys while there, even though she said we were kind of dating. Whenever she wanted away from a particular guy, she would come find me and start making out with me. I still gave her the benefit of the doubt for 2 months until she straight up made me catch her with her ex. These are 2 girls who both wanted to date me and made elaborate schemes to exact some sort of revenge on me. I've stayed away from those types for years now. Story 6. I once went on an internet double date. My friend had been internet dating this woman for a while and needed a driver to go meet her for the first time. To help convince me to drive, they arranged for one of her friends to come with. When we got to the meetup spot, a few cities over, the friend wasn't there, stuck at work. So I was forced to play third wheel, watching my friend and his girlfriend profess their love and make out. Needless to say, when friend finally showed up, I was overjoyed. She misinterpreted my "thank God, someone to talk to" reaction for a "oh my God, love at first sight" reaction. She got way intense way quick, so I eventually let her down as easily as I could. For months afterwards, I'd get multiple emails and phone calls a day, with the craziest example being an email with our names, "Together forever, I love you," typed out once for every day since we'd met. She also apparently went to my work once, but luckily, I wasn't there at the time. I was on the verge of calling the cops after that stunt. Eventually, my complete lack of responses to her communication, and after blocking several of her email addresses, it tapered off. but I'd still get random phone calls and emails from her, even years after this all happened. Story 7. TLDR. She got engaged to make me realize that she was my one true love and then threatened to commit suicide if I didn't elope with her. Girl who I saw just as a friend and had never flirted with started dropping really obvious, "I'm in love with you" things in texts. "I can't wait to go on a date with you." "I can't wait to kiss you," etc. I told her I wasn't interested that way. She kept pushing until I told her I was dating someone. I wasn't, and she sent me a really angry text message and disappeared. She started dating someone and got engaged, so thought I was home and free until she messaged me the night before her wedding. Basically, she said she just started dating the other guy to make me realize how much I loved her and wanted me to save her from a marriage to this awful man. I told her no. Then she said that she'd just swallowed a bottle of pills and wouldn't go to the hospital unless it was on the way to Vegas to elope. I called a mutual friend and told them what had happened and proceeded to block the crazy girl on everything. Turns out she hadn't actually swallowed a bottle of pills, was just being crazy. Story 8. Rejected a girl I barely knew who then started screaming she was going to kill herself if we weren't together. I felt bad for her, but pro tip for you ladies that think this is a winning strategy: it kind of makes people want to date you less. She proceeds to get on the ground and writhe around saying she's having a panic attack and she could die from it. I almost laugh at how fake it all is. I mean, she gently sits down during her fall and then positions herself carefully and then stops moving. But a group of people come by and rescue her. We were outside a campus. She goes to hospital and obviously the doctors find there's nothing wrong with her, but she claims they just couldn't spot it. Start spreading the word on how she nearly died from the cruel abuse I threw at her, and how when she was dying in the streets from a severe panic attack, I just cruelly laughed and walked away. Don't think a lot of people bought her story, but I never really saw her again, so it just kinda disappeared on its own. Story 9. I broke up with this girl and she didn't want to. She tried to talk me out of it and then tried to ride me by pinning my hands with her knees and trying to take my pants off. Being bigger and stronger, I just stood up and dumped her in the floor. I never thought about Rye. He same again after that. One time later, her other ex, my best friend, was visiting and she came over. Things seemed to be going okay when all of a sudden she leapt up in the air and tried to come down on my chest with her knees like some kind of wrestling move. I was so mad, I literally threw her out my front door and told her to get the f out of my life. Turns out she was jealous of our friendship. I don't think I ever saw her again. And for the record, the sex was good. You know what they say? Story 10. I dated a girl for a week when I realized she just wasn't my type and I wasn't hers. So I told her we would go our ways. Her way, however, was to stalk me for 3 years because we were meant to be together for life. Highlights were making fake internet accounts of other girls I dated in those 3 years, and knowing frightening much about me and these girls while writing me, impersonating them. Calling every day. When I changed numbers, she called every other person in my life she had the number of. Trying to date people I know in my life. Making weird collages of me and her on Facebook. Making up fake stories of her and me, and many, many more. Thank God it became less and less after long and exhausting talks I had with her to make her stop on and on again. Didn't hear from her since 2015. Story 11. Lying to me that she had become pregnant and intended to keep the kid. We had always practiced safe sex, but condoms have a non-zero failure rate, and there's no good way to tell someone who says they're pregnant that they're wrong, so I took her at her word. After 3 weeks of her stalling on showing me any kind of proof beyond her word, she told me it wasn't going to be a problem, but I was beside myself with stress until then. Meanwhile, I'm figuring out if I need to lawyer up. I take responsibility for myself, so being a deadbeat wasn't an option, but child support was going to throw a huge wrench into my financial plans. I was in the middle of moving to a new city as well. All in all, it sucked. Near as I can tell, her goal was to inflict stress and pain. She succeeded. Story 12. We dated a few times, and I decided that, while she was nice, I wasn't interested in pursuing a long-term relationship with her. I thought it would be best to let her know face-to-face rather than over text, so we met up for a drink in the city. I made sure we got a booth for some privacy and told her that it had been nice, but that I don't think taking things further was going to work. She began to cry uncontrollably and very loudly, demanding what she'd done wrong. Even from our booth, people started looking over at us. Maybe it was unfair of me to do it in public, but honestly, we'd only went out for dinner and drinks about 4 times by that stage, so I wasn't expecting her to react so strongly. Story 13. She stalked me for 19 months. Tried to hit me with a car. Tried to shoot me. Tried to stab me. Wrote my mom a letter and signed it in her blood. Wrote me a letter and did the same thing. And told all my friends I A few of them actually believed her, which just mystified me. On the positive side, I learned how to get a restraining order, gun permit, and concealed carry permit. I even learned you can get them at the same office from people who work at desks right next to each other. Pro tip: when they ask you why you need a restraining order and a gun permit, don't say, because if one doesn't work, the other will. They have no sense of humor in that office. Story 14. Met some friends at a bar event. Friends had girl who was beyond shithoused with them. Friends mention going back to their place. I decide to buy a burrito and go home. Girl says I should come with. I respectfully decline. She demands I come with. I decline again. Well, at least give me a good night kiss if you're not gonna come with. I pass because I do not know her. I'm not remotely into her and do not want to know her. This girl goes batshit. She's shrieking obscenities at me, trying to slap me from the railing she's against, just losing her mind. My friends are trying to calm her down, and I just pieced out through the kitchen of the place because I worked there. Story 15. Me and this Irish chick hooked up. We had a few great nights of f***ing each other's brains out. Come the following week, we play it off at work like nothing ever happened. About 2 weeks after that, we are f***ing and sucking each other silly after work. I realized after a month that our 20-year difference in age is gonna lead us nowhere together. I break this to her, and she walks to the site parking lot and burns my pickup truck to the ground. Like, not even the aluminum rims survived this. She was arrested for arson. I laid no charges against her. I got a new truck thanks to insurance. Never f around with a redhead. They are psycho. Story 16. Dated a girl from work. After a few dates, I didn't see it going much further. Ended it. Girl pretty much spread around we f***ed at work. We didn't. That single-handedly cost me any kind of promotion or horizontal move off what I was doing. So I ended up changing jobs about 12 months later after every application for promotion was given to someone else, despite myself having a lot more experience, know-how with what we did. Prior to that, I was being moved around from project to project. After, I just went back to permanent nights. Said girl went on to get pregnant about 6 months later by someone else from work. Lesson: don't dip your wick in company ink. Story 17. In high school, this girl would not stop texting me, so I blocked her. She then went on to tell her friends she was depressed and couldn't guard over me even though I rarely spoke to her in person, only through her constant stream of messages. After that, she fainted almost once a day during class, but coincidentally only in the classes she shared with me, then would cry to her friends that I was the reason she was fainting. Of course, though, she never hurt herself during these faints and always managed to land comfortably on the ground. She also used to just storm out the door in the middle of class and literally fall out the door. Story 18. A dude asked me over to his house to study. He put on some porn and asked to jerk me off. I said no, and then he figured he'd ask if he could blow me. I rejected him and told my mom to come get me. He persisted the whole time. Then at school, every time he saw me, he very loudly called me gay to everyone around him. I am not into dudes, and he was in the closet. Honestly, I just smiled and kept moving every time, and he eventually gave up. I think he came out 2 years later and was one of the 4 gay dudes in school in revolving relationships with each other. Story 19. Was in New York during Fleet Week in my dress whites with my group, waiting to cross the street. Drunk girl comes up to me, grabs me, and says she's always wanted to be with a sailor. I gently stiff arm and let her know I'm happily married, but point out my young single shipmate in the group. But I went you! Her friends have arrived by this point. She told them I was being mean because I said no and started crying. The friends confronted me. It's her birthday though. Your wife isn't even here, just be nice. If you like to watch more videos, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell.